The March sisters lived in a small town in Massachusetts, North America. It was a cold December evening in 1862, and snow was falling softly outside. In the warm living room of a modest house, 4 sisters sat by the fire. Their names were Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy March. Meg was 16, Jo 15, Beth 13, and Amy 12. Their mother, Mrs. March, was out visiting a poor, sick family, and their father, Mr. March, was far away, working in a hospital for soldiers during the war. The girls were knitting socks for the soldiers, their hands busy as they talked. "We are poor," said Meg, the eldest, with a sigh. She was a pretty girl with large eyes and soft brown hair. "It is terrible." Amy, the youngest, who had golden hair and blue eyes, added, "Other girls have lots of pretty things." Jo, tall and thin with beautiful long red hair, tossed her head impatiently. "I hate girls' work and girls' things," she said. "I don't want to stay at home, I want to fight in the war." Beth, who was shy and gentle, smiled quietly. "Yes, we are poor," she said softly, "but we are lucky too. We have father and mother, and we have each other." Jo's expression softened. "Yes, we have each other," she agreed, and the girls were happy again. "It's 6 o'clock," said Meg suddenly. "Be quick, everybody, Mother is coming. We must get supper ready." Jo brought more wood for the fire, Meg lit the lamps, and Beth and Amy set the table. A few minutes later, Mrs. March came in from the cold. She was not beautiful, but her face was kind and full of goodness. Her daughters called her Mommy. "How are you, my dears?" she asked. "Did you have a good day?" "Yes, thank you, Mommy," the girls replied eagerly. "Come sit by the fire, supper is ready," said Meg. After supper, Mrs. March said with a smile, "Girls, I have a wonderful surprise." Everyone was excited. "Is it a letter from Father?" asked Jo. "Yes," replied Mrs. March. "He has sent a Christmas message for all of you." The girls crowded around her to hear his words, their hearts full of love and longing. A few days later, it was Christmas morning. The girls woke up early, full of excitement. Each had received one present, a small book from their mother. They ran downstairs to thank her but found she wasn't there. On the table was a delicious breakfast waiting for them. The food looked wonderful, and they were hungry, but they waited patiently for their mother to return. When Mrs. March finally came home, they shouted, "Merry Christmas, Mommy. Come sit down, let's eat breakfast." She smiled, kissed each of them, and said, "Merry Christmas, my little daughters. But before we eat, I have something to tell you." She told them about a poor woman named Mrs. Hummel who lived nearby with her 7 children, one of them a baby. "Their house is cold and they have no food," said Mrs. March. "Will you give them a Christmas present, your breakfast?" For a moment, the girls were silent. They were very hungry. Then Jo said, "Yes, we will, Mommy. Let's take the food to them now." So they filled baskets with food and wood and set out into the snowy morning. The Hummels' home was small, cold, and bare, the windows broken, the fire out. The children were pale and shivering, and the baby cried weakly. When they saw the March sisters, they clapped their hands and shouted with joy. The girls made a fire, gave them food, and helped Mrs. Hummel care for the baby. Soon the little room was warm and full of laughter. When the Marches went home later and ate their simple bread and milk, they felt happier than ever before. That evening, after performing one of Joe's homemade plays in their attic theater, the girls came downstairs to find a surprise waiting for them, a table full of delicious food, sweets, fruit, and ice cream. "Where did this come from, Mommy?" asked Amy in astonishment. Mrs. March smiled. "Old Mr. Lawrence sent it," she said. "He heard about your kindness to the Hummels and wanted to give you a Christmas supper." The girls were overjoyed. "This is the best Christmas ever," said Beth, her eyes shining. The Lawrences lived next door in a large, beautiful house. Mr. Lawrence was an old, wealthy man who lived with his grandson, Laurie, a 15-year-old boy about Joe's age. Sometimes the March girls saw Laurie at his window, but he always looked lonely. One snowy afternoon, Joe was sweeping the path when she noticed Laurie watching her from his window. She smiled and tossed a snowball at his window. He laughed and opened it. "Are you ill?" she called. "I was last week," he said, "but I'm better now. I'm just bored." "I'll visit you, then," said Joe. Laurie's face lit up. "Please do," he said eagerly. A few minutes later, Joe knocked on the Lawrences' door, carrying a small basket of apples and cakes from her mother. Laurie greeted her warmly. "Thank you," he said. "Please come in. I'm Laurie, and you're Joe, aren't you?" Joe was surprised. "How do you know my name?" Laurie smiled. "I know all your sisters' names. I often see you in your garden with your mother." His voice grew sad. "I have no mother. My parents are dead, so I live here with my grandfather." Joe's heart softened. "I'm poor," she said, "but I have a family and a happy home. Please visit us sometime. We're neighbors, let's be friends." Laurie's face brightened, and the two talked all afternoon. From that day on, Laurie became their dear friend. All the March sisters liked him, and even stern old Mr. Lawrence grew fond of the girls. But Beth was too shy to visit the grand house. She loved music, though, and when Mr. Lawrence learned this, he offered to let her play his late granddaughter's piano. At first, Beth was too timid, but soon she began to go there each day when the house was quiet. One day, she decided to thank Mr. Lawrence for his kindness. She knitted him a pair of slippers and left them with a note on his table. When he didn't mention them, she thought he disliked her gift. The next morning, however, the March girls called Beth excitedly into the living room. There stood a beautiful little piano, with a note on top. It was from Mr. Lawrence, thanking her for her slippers. Beth burst into tears of joy, then ran next door to thank him in person. She threw her arms around his neck and kissed him. From that day, she was never shy with him again. As winter turned to spring, the Marches faced more small joys and troubles. Amy got into mischief when she burned Joe's precious storybook out of anger for not being allowed to go to the theater. Joe was furious, but when Amy later fell through the ice while skating, Joe helped rescue her. That fright taught Joe to control her temper, and the sisters forgave each other with tears and kisses. Life went on peacefully until one cold November day when Laurie brought a telegram to the March home. It was from Washington. Mr. March was very ill in the Army hospital. Mrs. March prepared to leave at once, and Mr. Lawrence's kind young tutor, John Brooke, offered to escort her. Before she left, Joe sold her long, beautiful red hair to earn money for her mother's journey, touching everyone's heart. While Mrs. March was away, the girls tried to keep cheerful and manage the house. But tragedy struck when Beth, visiting the Hummel family, caught scarlet fever from their sick baby. Meg and Joe nursed her day and night while Amy stayed safely with Aunt March. For many days Beth was dangerously ill, and the sisters feared she might die. Just as her strength was fading, Mrs. March arrived home. Laurie and Mr. Lawrence had secretly sent for her. With her mother's care and prayers, Beth slowly began to recover. By Christmas, she was well again, and that year's Christmas was the happiest of all. Mr. March came home, weak but smiling, brought safely by John Brooke. The family gathered around him, overjoyed. "This is the best Christmas present," cried Amy. Meg blushed when John Brooke entered the room. He loved her dearly, though he was poor. Joe worried about losing her sister, but Mrs. March reminded her that love mattered more than money. Soon after, John confessed his love to Meg, and though Aunt March disapproved bitterly, Meg told him she loved him too. The March family rejoiced at their engagement. Joe, though sad to see her sister grow up, finally understood. Looking around at her happy family, her kind parents, gentle Beth, sweet Amy, and her dearest friend Laurie, Joe smiled through her tears. "You are right, Laurie," she said softly. "Meg will marry John, but she will always be my sister, and we will always love each other."